We're smooth 98.1 FM. Good morning and welcome to Freshly Pressed. It is time to dig into the newspaper headlines this morning and see what it's looking like. And I've got two gentlemen who would be helping us make a meaning of all of these headlines. And then that includes you also to get us your messages onto our WhatsApp platform on 0809 444 0981 will be where we like to see your messages this morning responding to the headlines. So, having said that, let's make welcome to Olakunle Yusuf as he gets us started. Lakunle, good morning to you.
Good morning, Omas. Good morning, Lagos. We are ready to go.
Lakunle, you before backroom, you had said you had some information. I was on some expedition mission somewhere. Where did you get that one from, Lakunle?
You want us to say it in the open?
Okay, right.
Let's keep it in the back
All right.
room.
No wahala. So let's move on and get across to Devoe this morning. Devoe, good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right.
Well,
Well,
FM of mass, cool. You get dollar.
okay. That's the coup for the hump of the week this morning. I hope you don't want to trigger a price rush this morning. But let's begin with you since you have to go there. And the person in question in the center of it, if I don't have dollar and both of you don't have, the man who was in town as the January visitor should have, or we would find out if he left some after leaving the presidential villa. Let's go over to the Punch newspaper where the headline there is screaming and saying, guess what we're looking at? The Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, meets President Tinubu, pledges 45 million US dollars security fund for Nigeria. Now, since you dig into this story, Devoe, could this be where the coup you get dollar is coming from? And help us look at the economic, political, and other issues arising from a Secretary of State's visit when they show up in your country.
Yes. The Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, that's the equivalent to our Minister of Foreign Affairs here in Nigeria. And he paid a routine visit to West African democracies. At the top of the list is Nigeria and the Ivory Coast to discuss the U.S.-African partnerships over trade, climate, infrastructure, health, security, and other issues following a summit that they had in Washington, D.C., with African leaders in December 2022. Now, I just want to capture this conversation because when it comes to foreign policy, Nigeria has not been the strongest in terms of its representation. And one thing is key that foreign policy speaks to a nation's agenda with its strategic partners outside the country. Partnership could either be by way of trade in terms of exports or imports. Partnership could also be by way of alignment in terms of you have the bodies like the AU, the ECOWAS, the G5, G20 nations. You have the G8. You also have the Mint countries. You also have the BRICS nations. These are all, you also have after the trade agreement, you have AGOA. And these are all instruments, policies, formats, treaties, even by way of legalities were signed up to so many legal positions globally. Now, most times when foreign ministers or secretaries of state come to the country, they come with an agenda. And for the lack of me, it's supposed to be a, how do I call it? A complementary partnership, meaning in as much as they have their agenda with us, we should likewise have our agenda with them. And what I wanted to see with this visit was more or less how President Tinubu tabled the Nigerian agenda through the Minister of Foreign Affairs with representatives of the United States. Because what has happened is that when they speak to security, It's almost like they're reporting back what has happened, or in their own military bases here in Africa, which they have. It's debatable as to the agenda and the purpose why they are here. We never really get to see the benefits. And the benefit is only tabled when our own agenda is front and center. Okay? So I take such visits with a pinch of salt, because unless the Nigerian government is able to maximize and optimize the presence of these foreign partners in our country, it's as good as just reading another newspaper that an akara woman fried akara in the morning and ate it in the afternoon.
Okay, now let's go over to Lakunle. Lakunle, you've got something to add to this before we dig into the paper in front of you, where for a man, for the foreign, the Secretary of State who's coming in and, telling you of 45 million US dollars in terms of security, and then linking that up to the current economic, the security challenges we've been facing, especially when you hear what's happening in the federal capital, doesn't this come as a reprieve, or is this one of those rhetorics, and then when he's gone, we're waiting for the impact?
Don't forget that the Americans, right, like they've always told us from time immemorial, they have only permanent interests, no permanent friends. So when they offer you this kind of thing, you have to be circumspect about it. What are they planning to gain from me? And as is typical with most African countries, or rather most third world countries, like they like to call us, albeit derogatorily, we will jump at this offer first before we think about what the consequences are. $45 million compared to the kind of problems, or rather the challenges we face in Nigeria today, is small money, right? But would it solve a problem? Yes, it will. But then again, what is it that the Americans really want? For them to send their head of their foreign secretary to come and make this offer? Those are the kind of things that I want us to think through, and then to be sure that, okay, so is this for $12 million? Is it for Nigeria alone, or for West? Because it's said to West African nations. So how much of this 45 million is coming to Nigeria? Then if it comes to Nigeria, what will we be applying it to? We will see the effect of this. We will rather take the cash, or we will take it in terms of equipment or support. If we took the cash, how would that rub off on our need for this forex, for us to be able to deal with, because of course where we are today. So I'm not an economist, but I'm thinking in my head that whatever we are going to do with the money, if and when we take it, it has to show on the other side of the economy why it is solving the problem it is meant for.
All right, in summary, for both of you, Devoe, and you would just give me just 20 seconds to get this across. You take a stab at it. For a man who is drowning and you're being pulled out of the well, what business of yours is it where the rope you're being pulled out of the well is, where it's bought from, or for how much?
If the rope is tied around your neck before you get up, you may have suffocated.
Okay.
So,
Devoe.
Does the man know he's drowning?
Oh, okay. So let's move on and get off the next paper before Lakunle this morning. Lakunle, let's take us into the Punch newspaper, where it speaks here that the Miyetti Allah, DSS disagree over leader's arrest. It's a back and forth. You have him. The other side, the DSS, we don't have him. But in between these two, where is the man, a grown man?
Okay, so before we went on air, we spoken about this story. And my opinion about it is just that it's a typical put the pressure on them, press their neck, as they say in the trenches, press their neck that we're seeing. Okay, so the real story here is that at a function, the head of the Miyetti Allah Kauthal Hore, I hope I pronounced that correctly, and made a pronouncement that they were starting a form of vigilante group to protect their herds, and that they've launched it in Nasarawa State, and they have plans to launch it in other states across the country. Now, Two things for me. One, there's the economic part of it. These guys every day complain that their cattle are being rustled. Some people come to steal their cattle, right? Cattle business is big business. There's a lot of money involved. So if the state cannot help me to guarantee the safety of my business, I will help myself to guarantee the safety of my business, which is a valid reasoning, right? But guess what? The state of Nigeria does not put the power to secure yourself in your hands. It puts it in the hands of government, that the government's primary responsibility is to guarantee the security of life, property, business of every citizen. It did not say I would also sublet it to my citizens to do by themselves. So to that extent, what the Miyetti Allah should be doing is to be forming a pressure group to pressure government to provide the security. Now that you have done this, the other flip side of it is this, that people who are not members of your association, the economic one, the cultural one, the religious one, see you as a threat to them already. That these guys, if they do this thing, they will take it beyond what they say they want to do with it. And that's where the problem is. So to that extent, I think that nature ordinarily abhors vacuums. Once we create a vacuum, something will fill it. We are talking about policing. The Nigerian army is so stretched that their real job, we can't even find them to do it anymore. They are doing policing jobs all over the place. Now, we are 200 million people in estimates. We also have a policing system of 350,000 personnel. The ratio is too huge to happen. We have about 49% of these 200 million in the age range of 18 to 45. What happens to reducing that ratio? The United Nations ratio for policing is, I think, 1 to 400. How about even if we did that to 1 to 1,000? That means that I would have about 2 million personnel in our police. I hope my math is correct off the top of my head. Have 2 million personnel in our police. That we will be able to stretch the security of everybody to some extent. But we have a lot of ungoverned land masses around Nigeria that you can travel between here and Ibadan and not see one policeman, for example. So those are the things that are. Then the DSS saying that they don't have the man is probably a way to just douse tension, that by the time they are done, they would have debriefed the man and have understood why he's doing it. So let's just hope that this goes right.
Okay. Well, if you just joined in, you're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. We'd like to get your thoughts on the local headlines this morning. If you send message to 0809 444 0981 will be where we like to read the messages. Devoe, you've got a little bit of a 50 cent or 50 naira to spend on this story, just to where the DSS and the ATL are saying, you have him, we don't have him. And then before we proceed to the next paper, the Daily Trust waiting for you.
Well, generally, I'm literally tired of what we call media trial, media prosecution, and booking. I think security agencies need to do their job. And we all know what doing their job means. And that's all I have to say. Just do your job. We don't need all this mansplaining or media-like commotion, which is largely what the next story is about just doing your basic job.
All right, still freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. We're picking up the Daily Trust after now on the other side.
It's like listening to a symphony of body parts directed by a bass. When you walk, it is like watching a voice is a piano saxophone, making love to a cello at perfect pitch. You are so smooth. That's why we keep it here on 98.1. This is Justin EJ signing out. You are listening to the Smooth Breakfast right here on Smooth 98.1.
It is still freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1 FM. Devoe, let's pick up this paper and look at this relating to security once again. So, the Daily Trust report here, insecurity, federal government sets up committee for surveillance system installation on the Abuja-Kaduna highway. A little too late or too soon, would you want to say?
Neither. It's like I said before, it's a foregone conclusion that the government at federal, state, and local need to have put security architecture in place. Anytime people use that word, most people don't understand. Security architecture is just basically your strategy, your roadmap, what you have in place in form of infrastructure, equipment, manpower, intelligence data to be able to address your security shortfalls. Nothing more. It's not what needs to even be coming out on. I mean, just look at this. How do I call it? Will and spoke approach. The federal government sets up a committee to set up a surveillance system on the Abuja-Kaduna highway. Are we jokers? Are we playing, as they say colloquially? Yeah, shouldn't you have mapped out between January to let's say first quarter, January, February, March, what the Ministry of Defense is going to do to beef up security around the country? We've not even finished talking about how, I think on Monday, there was an emergency approval given by the president to the FCT minister, Wike, in buying tracking information, which he even exposed by saying that Abuja police, the police head force, does not have tracking equipment, that as a governor in Rivers, they were one of the only states that had, and even the police headquarters used to borrow from them. What happened to the DSS? That most times they have to even go to the NSA's office to loan their own tracking information. Are you surprised that we've had a lot of crime spreading without anybody being tracked, caught, prosecuted, talk less of being booked? Are you shocked? Are you surprised that the complete failure of intelligence, whereby most times these criminals run amok and the security forces, be it military, police, or even NCDC, only show up 6 hours or 10 hours after? And now you're telling us that you have a committee to do what? To just address 1/100th of the problem? So if you put up surveillance equipment in Abuja-Kaduna, what happens to those traveling to Lagos? What happens to those traveling from Lagos to Port Harcourt or Uyo? Or from those going straight from Calabar all the way to Maiduguri? Come on, are we playing?
But Devoe, in order to solve a problem, you start from somewhere. They say when trees fall on trees, you lift up the ones on top first before you get to the bottom. So
we are referring to a whole nation. We are 200 million. Might I remind you of about what you have at stake? And like I said before, there should actually be a state of emergency for security. Why? Because security first, before you even talk economy and investment. No matter how brilliant your plans are, no matter how far-reaching your foreign investors are willing to come, as long as your environment is not secure for your people, foreigners or investors will not be able to move their funds. It will make nonsense and mockery of your plans. The stability that we're looking for is for people to know that they can move around safely, both goods and in persons. Remember, the kidnap cases are just the ones that we have heard. Many go unreported. So how does that help your agenda? So I want to see some level of urgency, sense of urgency with the federal government, especially where security is concerned. I want to see what you had during the COVID era, some kind of presidential task force that takes it on a day-to-day basis. We've done this, we're doing that, we've caught that, so that the people begin to gain confidence that their lives still mean something. Thank you.
All right, so let's Lakunle, just I know you're going to I know you need to weigh in on this, and in weighing in on this one of the things that has riled up Devoe already this morning about this is this committee tradition we've got in this country for everything. Then later on, a committee would come up to set up to look at what the committee has done. Speak to that in relation to security.
Exactly, that's what I was going to even say. Look, it's not even the job of the Ministry of Defense to be doing police work. That's why we have a Ministry of Police. We have a Police Service Commission. The matter we're talking about is policing. It hasn't got anything to do with the defense of the integrity of the territory of Nigeria. The military's job, which the Ministry of Defense supervises, is got to do with external aggression, except we have a new definition to it. So when we are setting up committees, what is the purpose? Why do we have an IG? Okay, so let's even assume that it is the Ministry of Defense's job. Why do we have a Chief of Defense Staff? Why do we have the service chiefs? It is their job to do. They're just to supervise. I need so and so, give me, you give them. So I don't know what puts it in their heads that it is committee we need at this point in time. Don't forget, we're talking security. Food inflation has crossed the 30% mark, right? And agricultural experts are saying we have just seen the palm fronds. We have not seen the masquerade itself. So imagine what that's going. I'm sorry, I said that to you right in my head. So that winter is coming. That's what they have told us. And these guys can't go to farm because their farms are not even safe for them to go to. And we are busy setting up committees. It's okay.
Well, Asha's Fire on the Mountain is still an album I know somewhere. That song was played even at an event for a sitting president back in the days. But let's get on to your paper, The Premium Times, staring at you now, where it says the United Nations asked Nigeria to end death penalty rights and violation in this point. Here we are. From security in trying to do this, how do you create a balance in not encroaching on human rights and then death penalty in all of this? It's for your take now.
Yes, I think that historically, death penalties had always been the extreme of punishment. It is not a default, right? And I also think that for the times we are now and the general balance within law enforcement that says that they would rather allow a guilty man escape than to kill an innocent person. We've had instances all over the world where people have been sent to the hangman's noose, they've been executed, later to find out that such people were actually innocent of the offenses. And I think that the sentiment for that has overridden the need to continue to do that. And as far back as 1949, countries all over the world have been abolishing this. Guess what? As far back as 1981, the first African country to do this was Cape Verde. And as recent as last year, I think Central African Republic, Zambia, and one other country that does not come easily to mind also did. In Africa today, 26 countries have abolished. 16 still have it partially. One of such 16 is Ghana. Nigeria belongs to the 14 where it is still in our laws 100%, right? But guess what? Even in Nigeria where we have it, when last did you hear that somebody was executed for a conviction? The Controller General of Prison Services says that there are 3,413 inmates on death row in all across the states. Our governors in the last 20 years, how many of them have signed the death warrant of these people? No. So those guys are there. So technically, what we have just done is that it's in the law, but we're not practicing it. So what we really need to do is to get it out of our laws if we are really serious. We are just one of the 5 left in West Africa. So that means that if we are giant of Africa, we should be taking the lead in a lot of these kind of things. So in my mind, I am also a believer in that people deserve second chances because, of course, of that we are spiritual people, we are people of faith in Nigeria. We believe in what the Holy Book says as forgive and move on, so that God can also forgive you things and so on. But then there must be appropriate punishment for everything. It does not then mean that because you don't execute people for committing those offenses, there must be some form of heavy punishment that makes the person probably regret the action he has taken for the rest of his life. You know, so And I think that is a good thing to call for us to do it. And it's also a call on our National Assembly to look at our penal codes in its entirety, update them, remove the ones that need to be removed. And that's why we also need our civil liberty organization to form this pressure group I always talk about, to lobby the National Assembly to get the needful done.
All right, so let's go over to getting messages waiting already. Emeka comes up with a message here where he says, from Ikeja, how do we distinguish between Mayeti Allah and herdsmen terrorists? They both operate in bush and unknown, and the database, that's what Emeka from Ikeja leaves us with this morning. And then I've got Dami from VI. The money pledged will go into a fund to provide training, logistical, and material support for the coastal West African countries. Then it goes on, but even if the entire US Treasury was transferred to the CBN, or all the assets of the US Department is transferred to the Department of Defense, to the armed forces, our security situation will not improve because much of the money is going into end up in Swiss and London accounts, and trained personnel will be used to guard big men, and the equipment will be misplaced by the elite class not interested in protecting the population. Thoughts of Dami from VI. Then comes Taiwo saying the police number stated by our man, that's what he even mentioned, saying he's hoping his maths will be correct. But it goes on, we only need 500,000 personnel to meet the UN regulation of 1 to 400. And that's what Taiwo Shotumbo had to say on that issue there, Lakunle. And then Abi Ambo comes up from Badagry with a message here. Anthony Blinken's visit is noteworthy development. His 45 million US dollar pledge to tackle insecurity in Nigeria is also noteworthy, but I hope it is not the usual smokescreen for hidden agenda. That's what Ebilade Ambo from Badagry leaves us with. Gilbert Musa's message is waiting next, and it says, from Festac, on the donation from the U.S. Secretary of State for security purpose, it goes on in Nigeria, first things first, we need to analyze the reason for these continuous attacks and kidnapping before deploying resources. We should employ local intelligence amongst other strategies. Said comes up, says, God bless you with that statement, remove the upper tree. Oh, Said's message is what I'm reading this morning. All right, JP's message waits here, and it says, insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. The president must sort out insecurity as it's festered too long. Committee, wrong. Executive appointment in defense, in my opinion. Then Uzo. Then it goes on. Uzo says, my brother Devoe don't vex. I feel his pain. This knee-jerk approach is exactly why we are where we are as a nation. It's hard to keep hope alive in the country, but let's keep hope and keep moving. Okay, let's get one more. Devoe. Hello, Devoe.
I'm with you.
All right, please just sum this one up for us. We just talk about it briefly in a minute. Uriwa rejects call for NYC suspension. That's according to the Vanguard newspaper. If you do this for us in less than a minute, thank you.
Yeah, the Uriwa, that's the Human Rights Writers Association of Nigeria. They're strongly rejecting the calls by some to suspend the NYSC, that's the National Youth Service Corps. But rather they're advocating for increased security measures and funding. And this is coming on the verge of the fact that because corpers have been subject or have become victims of the insecurity nationwide. I mean, this has been going on for the past 10 years. Even it led to, because at some point some were killed. That was during the Goodluck Jonathan administration. I think part of how he healed that pain was increasing their alawi. Now, in fairness to government, the Youth Service Corps, they don't have any special protection. They travel like every other person. At best, they wear their uniforms for recognition, but that recognition has made them targets. And as you know, many parents are very wary and careful of how and where their wards are posted to, so that they don't get posted to flashpoints. And the truth is, it's unfortunate that that is being used as a reason why the NYSC should be scrapped, rather than actually dealing with the real issues with the NYSC. Here we are with the fallout of of the insecurity issue. However, yes, there's been a greater push by some to scrap the NYSC. I think it's a beautiful program. I think if any government is interested in keeping the fabric of this nation together, the NYSC should become priority. But it's left to Nigerians to push their interest in the face of their elected leaders to be able to do their bidding and not their own personal interests.
And this is the point where we say it's a fine place to anchor and say thank you so much to Devoe Okorie for your time and your insights on the show this morning. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye. Have a
And
good
also,
day.
thank you so much to Lakunle, Yusuf, for your time. And to you who also sent in your messages. We're not done yet. We're heading straight into the locker room at 8:15. I need you to come along with me. Stay tuned. We're Smooth 98.1 FM. Good morning.
The headlines.